Welcome, fellow humans. Today I'm going to tell the story of how I taught myself to lucid dream, many, many years before I ever learned the term lucid dreaming. When I was a child, I really had a strong commitment to remembering my life accurately. But over time, I noticed that there was a problem. And that problem was that I spent a good portion of every day having experiences that weren't real. This is called dreaming. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But it really bothered me on two levels. One, I was worried that the dream events would corrupt my memories of what experience I have actually had and make me believe that I'd had experiences that were fake. And the other issue was just a more basic one. During a dream, it feels real. I think that I'm having real experiences. At least most of the time, that's the case. And so if I'm going about my day and I think it's real, and then I'm having my dreams and I think it's real, how can I ever know whether or not what's currently happening to me is real? If everything could always be fake, then that's really disturbing, or at least it was very disturbing to me. So at around the age of 7, I decided that I needed to fix this problem. I couldn't just keep going on with having this dual life and these dual experiences and never knowing when it was real and when it wasn't. And so I tried to think of a way to make sure that I could know whether or not what's happening to me is real. So I started thinking about the problem, and I thought about what are the characteristics of a dream that would help me to distinguish when I'm in a dream versus when I'm in reality. And the main one seemed to be that dreams just start in media res. This is not a term I knew at the time either, so I didn't have a really good way to describe that, but I knew that they would just sort of begin, and they didn't have a coherent chain of how I got there, whereas reality does. I always could trace back my steps and keep tracing them back as best as I could remember them, and it would always make sense. So what I decided to do is regularly ask myself, where am I? How did I get here? What is the chain of events that brought me here? And for a while I would do this, and it would happen while I was awake, and so it would be something like, I'm in school, I walked down the hall to my classroom, before that I was on the school bus, before that I was waiting for the bus, and before that I had breakfast at my house, and I woke up for the day, and everything would make sense, and it'd be a chain of events. And then, finally it happened. I asked myself, where am I, and how did I get here? And I was at a school assembly, and I got there from the classroom, and that's when I realized there was nothing before that. I hadn't had a school bus ride, I hadn't had breakfast, I had just been in the school. There was nothing that led to it. And so I realized I'm in a dream. So the first thing I did is I turned to my friend and I said, this is my dream. You can have whatever you want. It's my dream. I should be able to control it. What would you like? And she said she would like to go home. Fortunately, I was correct. This was in fact a dream. This is not about to be a really embarrassing story. So I said, this is my dream, and in my dream, my friend is home. And she vanished. It didn't occur to me at the time that that wasn't actually my friend, it was a dream version, and so giving her what she wanted didn't actually make any difference, but at least my heart was in the right place. So then I thought, what do I want? And I was like, I don't want to waste my dream in a school assembly. This is really boring. So I said, this is my dream, and I'm getting ice cream. And I was in an ice cream store, and I could have some ice cream. And then I decided, this is my dream. I'm in the movie theater. And I was in the movie theater. And the movie hadn't started yet. And I was sitting in my seat. And I started to fall down my seat to the seat in front of me, to the point that the seat in front of me was partially covering my face. And this was really annoying. So I said, "This is my dream, and in my dream, I'm back in my seat." And it did not work. And I tried that a few times, and it kept failing, and I was getting very annoyed, and so I got to the point that it woke me up. And my blanket was partially covering my face. So I went, oh, okay, that explains what was going on. The blanket was being incorporated into the dream, and while I have super magic powers in my dreams, I do not have them in reality, and I cannot move the blanket from a dream. I then, of course, fixed the blanket and tried to go back to sleep. But after I had had my first lucid dream, I was able to have a small number more, and the best part was, because I kept doing this and checking whether it was dream or reality, I got to a point where I didn't actually have to trace back my actions. I could just ask myself, where am I? Is this real? And I learned to feel the difference between being in a dream and in reality, which also taught me that there is a difference. It's not something I can put into words, but there's just a subtle difference in feel between dream and reality. And so once I had realized that, I felt a lot more comfortable with being able to know that reality was real, because the real universe feels different from dreams. And this would be a very good source of reassurance until I was in college and had my first sleep paralysis hallucination, which is when you have a blend of being awake and being asleep at the same time, and you get a horrific nightmare. And while it wasn't the worst nightmare I've ever had, it was probably the scariest I'd had until further sleep paralysis hallucinations. Or actually, probably the first was still the scariest, because the main difference was it felt like reality. My entire brain was screaming at me I was actually in danger, and this was real. But I'll probably talk about that in a different episode, video at some point. But anyway, I managed to teach myself to lucid dream, and I managed to feel reassured about the state of reality, and was able to move on to not having to constantly do that. As such, I don't regularly lucid dream anymore, and I'm very much out of the practice. I've had a few more lucid dreams here and there, but I don't feel a need for them, and that's good. But if you do want to lucid dream, there are a variety of techniques you can use, but the one that I use does seem to work just fine. I don't know for sure if it would work for other people, but I suspect it might. It makes sense to me. But anyway, that's my story, and I hope you liked it. And if you did, please click like, and if you know someone who might be interested in it, share it. And if you'd like more similar content, subscribe. And of course, most of all, if you have any questions or similar experiences, please comment. I'd love to read your comments. Thank you.